Commander 2016 has been one of the more interesting Commander releases in Magic's history. New 4-color Commanders, always crazy. Some awesome reprints, very nice. But I have to say, the idea of Partner as a mechanic really surprised me, fundamentally changing the nature of what it means to be a Commander in this format. Partner allows 2 Commanders to lead your army. So naturally I had to brew, obviously. I'm freaking Wedge, come on. Anyways, you know what's better than a Commander deck? A budget Commander deck. This deck I'm about to show you is $50, the whole thing, $50, and it's friggin' awesome. We'll be using TCG player pricing throughout the video to prove it to you, and if you want to see the deck list or purchase any pieces of it, you can click the first link in the description. Helps out the channel, we all win. Let's get into it. Our deck is Abzan, and it's led by Ravos, Soultender, and Reyhan, last of the Abzan. Having 2 commanders allows us to bring together 2 distinctly different archetypes, and when they synergize, it's beautiful. Ravos Soultender is 5 mana for a 2/2 human cleric with flying, and other creatures you control get +1/+1. At the beginning of your upkeep, you may return target creature card from your graveyard to your hand. Ravos is a recursion-based commander with an added anthem bonus for your team. Reyhan, last of the Abzan, is 3 mana for a human warrior that enters the battlefield with 3 +1/+1 counters. Whenever a creature you control dies or is put into the command zone, if it had 1 or more +1/+1 counters on it, you may put that many +1/+1 counters on target creature. So Reyhan comes in with 3 counters, and when she dies, you get to give 3 +1/+1 counters to another creature. That ability applies to any creature you control that has +1/+1 counters on it. So let's review. When Reyhan or any creature you control with a +1/+1 counter on it dies, you get to move those counters. And Ravos gets to bring back a creature every turn from your graveyard to your hand. Say hello to our Abzan creation. The goal is to overwhelm our opponents with a myriad of creatures that never stay dead and are buffed by +1/+1 counters. Oh baby, here we go. Remember, this deck is budget, so some of the more expensive, high-profile cards you will notice are missing. Keep that in mind when we show you what we've included. This is a 3-color deck, and we're going to need mana fixing. We're running Felwar Stone, Golgari Signet, Orzhov Signet, and Selesnya Signet to help us fix our mana and ramp a bit. Of course, we're also running Sol Ring, but, come on, isn't everyone? In addition to our lovely mana rocks, we have a few powerful ramp/fixing spells. We're running Farseek, Rampant Growth, Cultivate, and Kodama's Reach. As you'll see in a second, we need a lot of mana to do some of the things we're trying to do. And while the curve of the deck is relatively low, it's important we have all of our colors and an abundance of mana sources. That does it for mana-related shenanigans. Let's talk about the good stuff. We'll begin with some heavy hitters, ways to justify our large amount of ramp spells. We're running Hangerback Walker, Hooded Hydra, and Vastwood Hydra. What makes these creatures uniquely dangerous? Not only are they gigantic by themselves, but they all do powerful things once they die. The best part? The cherry on top of the sundae that is Commander, these effects and Reyhan's trigger both happen. So when your Hangerback Walker dies, not only do you get the 1/1 Thopters, but you also get to move its counters to something else. How is that not amazing? How is that not what you want to be doing in your life? Think about Vastwood Hydra. When it dies, you get to distribute counters equal to the amount of counters on the Hydra. And Reyhan's trigger. There's so many counters. You'll need way more dice than you have right now. Alright, I'm getting a little too excited. Let's move along. Now remember, what we're trying to do is get creatures on the board, get a bunch of +1/+1 counters, then abuse a recursion strategy to seal the deal. We do have Hooded Hydra and Hangerback Walker for creature creation shenanigans, but we also get Twilight Drover and Mycoloth. With the amount of +1/+1 counter production we have, getting the ball rolling on this won't be that difficult. Mycoloth creates a way for us to sacrifice creatures and gets more creatures every turn. We need these kinds of engines. The rest of our +1/+1 counter package is about massing counters, moving them around easily, and gaining incremental rewards for even having counters in our deck. Time to break it all down. Our deck is anchored by creatures that can easily accrue +1/+1 counters and that deliciously synergize with Reyhan naturally. We've included Mana Gorger, Hydra, Renegade Krasis, Forgotten Ancient, and Juniper Order Ranger because they all easily gain counters. The Ancient even lets you move counters if you want. It's so convenient. In addition to massing counters, we have a package of cards to help us move or abuse the fact that we're gaining counters. Corpsejack Menace straight up doubles our +1/+1 counter production. You can't say no to that. Dagatar the Adamant brings 4 counters and lets you move counters between 2 creatures. One of them doesn't even have to be him. Solidarity of Heroes, come on, it doubles +1/+1 counters, that's easy. And Hardened Scales is just a little more incremental advantage. Now that we clearly have all this crazy counter production, how are we going to abuse it? In addition to Mycoloth, Gyre Sage gives us some sick ramp based on our counters. Bloodspore Thrynax essentially turns any creature you bring onto the battlefield into a counter machine, and Triskelion, with enough counters on it, ends the game. Straight up ends it, by itself. That ability is disturbing and powerful. Think about the deck we're playing. This is a deck that's running Reyhan and Vastwood Hydra. Triskelion could kill someone, just saying. Other counter creatures we have include Elite Scaleguard, Abzan Falconer, and Crystalline Crawler. Scaleguard will enable your team to wipe out defenders. The Falconer gives all your stuff flying, which is just broken, and the Crawler ramps, color fixes, and gets bigger by itself. All useful. We clearly have a lot of ways to get counters, but in case none of those work out, or we have a bunch of tokens that really need counters on them, we have some non-creature support. Abzan Charm spreads 2 counters among 2 creatures at most. It's also a great modal spell for drawing cards or removing something annoying. Collective Effort is fantastic, giving all of our creatures a +1/+1 counter. Talk about enabling. Abzan Ascendancy, same thing, blanket for counters. And Citadel Siege Cons Mode. 2 counters at the beginning of combat on your turn, not bad at all. These are decent budget options for sure. Alright, so far we've shown you everything you need to know about the Reyhan part of the deck, the +1/+1 counter part of the deck. Now, it's time to talk Recursion and really bring the strategy together. Ravos Soultender is a beast of a card. Sure, the first ability is great, your other creatures get +1/+1. Cool, whatever. The reason we're playing Ravos is the second trigger. We get a creature back on each of our turns. To take full advantage of this, we need ways to kill our creatures so we can then return them with Ravos. But also so we can get some sweet Reyhan counters. Time to look at some sack engines. Plague Maw Beast is an amazing sacrifice engine that directly synergizes with our counter plan. It proliferates for us, pumping up all of our countered creatures. Scourge of Skull of Vale sacrifices other creatures to gain more +1/+1 counters, again, synergizing directly with Reyhan and the rest of our counter brigade. And if need be, Retribution of the Ancients can decimate our own flock to take down the enemy. We have plenty of ways to kill our own creatures. As a matter of fact, we're not even done yet. The deck also runs Viscera Seer, Gerard, Golgari Lichlord, and Smothering Abomination. The Abomination may seem risky, but we have plenty of ways to create large amounts of tokens if need be. So now that we have our sack engine up and running, what are we going to let die? Obviously, we're okay with any of our creatures that trigger goodies on death going to the graveyard. I mean, that's just special, so those are shoo-ins. In addition to these, we're running Dauntless Escort to help keep our team alive. Recurring him's going to be fun. Reclamation Sage and Acidic Slime for some sweet removal, no problem sacrificing them and bringing them back. More removal is always better. And Yavimaya Elder is just so much value wrapped into one card, it's outrageous. Man, we really love letting stuff die. In addition to Ravos himself, we're also running Den Protector, Regrowth, and Sun Titan for Recursion. Can't count on our bare-chested hero for everything, now can we? We're also running Death's Presence and Fecundity for even more value on death. Seriously, we're kind of all about death right now. It feels good. Not to mention the second half of Abzan Ascendancy. Our creatures die, it creates new tokens for us to then, kill. It's wonderful. We round out the rest of our non-land cards with some generally high-quality inclusions to really solidify the deck's effectiveness in games. We have a plethora of removal in Swords to Plowshares, Anguished Unmaking, Mortify, and Petrify. The deck also has Return to Dust and Sylvan Reclamation if you really need to drive home the anti-artifact and enchantment sub-theme we got going on here. All that's left to cover is the mana base. This is a budget deck, so we have our best general budget options in Command Tower, Opal Palace, Exotic Orchard, and Terramorphic Expanse. You'd think color fixing would be a bit difficult on a budget, but we found a way to make it work. We have the Vivid Land Cycle, at least the colors we're allowed to run, a few temples from Theros blocks, some applicable Pain lands, all cheap, and the ever-awesome Bounce lands. Add in some Guild Gates and basic lands, and you have our 36 land mana base. It's so cheap. Alright, Ravos and Reyhan is a deck designed around the idea of amassing so many +1/+1 counters that any creature you play will automatically be a threat. You have a ton of ways to generate counters on the battlefield, plenty of engines to grow your counters once you have some, more than enough sacrifice engines to help Reyhan's triggered ability, and Ravos and company to help bring stuff back. This deck is a machine, and until you've cast a giant Vastwood Hydra, sacrificed it to Scourge of Skolavale, double triggered it and Reyhan, and put all those counters on Triskelion, you just haven't lived. You really haven't. This deck is a budget dream. Want to talk upgrades? Because if you're interested in this strategy, there are some improvements to be made. First, add Doubling Season. Because you're a Magic the Gathering player, and this is a Magic the Gathering deck that Doubling Season can be added to, so do that. After that, high-quality creatures like Gave, Colonian Hydra, Mikaeus the Lunarch, and Primordial Hydra are all solid candidates for inclusion. We're talking best of the best here. Of course, you could also add Necropolis Regent, Revelark for more recursion, Vigor, and Archangel of Thune to that list as well. Yeah, this could end up being a really long list. Anyways, the last auto-includes I'd put in, Planeswalkers. Nissa Voice of Zendikar, a Johnny Mentor of Heroes, and a Johnny Steadfast. Enjoy the pain and suffering you're about to cause everyone. It feels so good. Well, what do you think? Is Ravos and Reyhan a deck that you'd consider building? Is this type of strategy even something you enjoy? Personally, putting this together and playing with it was just way too much fun. Love the synergy, love the amount of counters, so awesome. Remember, if you want to see the deck list in full or order any of the cards, you can do that by clicking the first link in the description. And again, this is a $50 Commander deck. That's it. For the whole thing, $50. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, remember to hit that like button. Helps out a lot. As always, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.